S.H.I.E.L.D. Weekly Comics episode 3, but audio version, but I think 30 if we're paying attention to live stream version. I'm Mike.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Vincent. Yeah, I have no idea what episode this is. Do you guys have haul thingies?
Next week I will.
Okay, it's just me. All right, I'm going to try and keep this relatively short. We're 30 seconds in. I'll keep it under 9.5 minutes. So, for one, I received in the mail today this art germ boobies, and I put it in one of these case thingies. A friend of mine got me 2 of these for my birthday, and so I basically have the 2 greatest X-Men covers of all time, art germ boobies, Emma Frost, and my X-Men #1 signed by Chris Claremont and Jim Lee. And it's the fold-out version, so I don't know. At some point, I'll get an actual frame and fold it out, because also, like, the fold-out version doesn't actually cover the full issue due to the fold-out nature. So it actually looks pretty stupid in a frame as it currently is.
Wait, what did you get Claremont to sign when you met him at NittyCon?
I don't think anything. I don't remember. It may have been, I'm not sure. Also, I went to 2nd and Charles last weekend, and they were doing a buy 5, get 5 deal on single issues, which they calculated, like, the computer, it's not like they said, like, they don't ring you up for an issue. The computer, like, calculates it as a percentage on every single issue, and it came out to, like, way more than I thought it was going to be, which is kind of frustrating. But once you have them ring up like 100 issues, you're not going to say I'm putting those back, but whatever. So they're mostly in, like, groups, so I'm going to show off. Well, first of all, there was so many, and I didn't have, like, great, like, stuff to hold them in on me. So I went to the trade-in section and said, hey, do you have any boxes? And they gave me a box of Tito's vodka, so carry them in. So I've got here several Chaos books. Some nice glare. We got some Evil Ernie issues and some Lady Death. And let me find the most interesting or funny one. There is a Lady Death in lingerie special, which is definitely fun to have a female. And then got a bunch of Image trash. We got some issues of Pit, Phantom Force #2, the final work of Jack Kirby before he passed away, Prophet, Stephen Platt, and then I got the full main run of Spy Boy, which is a creator-owned, I think it's creator-owned, but it's a Dark Horse comic by Peter David and Pop Man, and it had a crossover with Young Justice, which we talked about on our other show this week. Then I got a bunch of early issues of Supreme, the Rob Liefeld Superman ripoff, which the weird thing about Supreme is some people may know it for Alan Moore's run on the character in the late 90s. But the thing is, Alan Moore, like, kind of retconned and revealed that what he was writing was a different character. So, like, on wikis and stuff, this version of the character that Liefeld, like, started up is referred to as Mean Supreme, because the Liefeld Superman ripoff is an absolute dick, and the Alan Moore take on the character is, like a wholesome Superman type. Also, issues, I think 2 through 4. Yeah, issues 2 through 4 have signatures. It's not really going to show up well. I have to assume they're signed by Brian Murray, who was the writer I'm not really sure what he did in these issues because he was like an all-around guy. I think he had a background in like coloring, but he eventually wrote the series and probably colored. Obviously, past Supreme, his name means absolutely nothing to anyone. And also, like, I don't know if someone like was really hyped when the book was new and got him to sign a bunch, and then was a complete idiot because all these signatures are smudged. So they're not even like legitimate signatures. And then the final part of stuff that I got in this grab, I think this is the final part, is I picked up a near complete run of every issue of Warlands, which is, if it's not the like biggest book that they did, it was the second biggest book from Dreamwave, which was founded by two brothers, I believe Korean Canadian. They're Asian Canadian of some sort, I believe Korean descent. And the artist one, the actual creative one, is Pat Lee. The other guy was more on the business editorial side. And they were an Image studio, like I believe maybe one of the first like studios in Image. After the founders, and then eventually you had stuff like Joe's Books and Robert Kirkman's Skybound. And then I got a few other scattered issues. Here's an issue of Whisper, which has been fucked up because this Tito's box is a terrible way to store comic books.
It's great to store in vodka, though.
That is a live discovery on air, so don't store your books in a Tito's vodka box because you'll have issues of Whisper bent. All right, that's my haul. I stayed in time.
I'm happy you kept it below 9 minutes, but 7. Shoot for 5 next time. Is what I have to say. Continually get better. But getting into our retro book this week is we have Adventure Comics number 452, starring Aquaman, and right on the cover it's Aquaman and Aqualad to the death. This issue is written by David Michelinie, and art on this is by Jim Aparo. And we left off with the tease of, this is a big issue. Spoiler alert for an issue that's like 30 or 40 years old. This is the death of Aquababy. We open with the issue of Aquaman tussling with this like undersea cult, and he's then usurped by Black Manta, and basically he's captured him and Aqualad, and and he's also captured his son because Topo the octopus stole Aquababy, and Black Manta somehow ended up with him. But Black Manta has encased Aquababy in this oxygen tank that's going to be empty of water in 5 minutes. And once it gets empty, because Aquababy doesn't know how to breathe out of water, he only has about 5 minutes of life outside the bubble. And he commands Aqualad and Aquaman to fight to the death. Aquaman, without like really breaking a sweat or like really thinking about it, goes, "All right, guess I got to kill Aqualad." And they immediately just get into a fight. Topo then comes back and like breaks down the walls and gives Aquaman a moment to like throw his spear to try to free Aquababy. But at the end of all this, it's too late. They discover Aquababy is dead. And I'm not going to fully sum up panel by panel like we sometimes do on this because it is a pretty well-known issue. But I will say it's a very, very good issue. David Michelinie's writing here is top-notch, and Jim Aparo's pencils here are top-notch. I'll open the floor to you guys, but definitely one of the higher and better books we've read for the Retro Spotlight.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, not really having a lot of exposure to Aquaman, this was just a really great issue, like Mike said. I mean, I'm really familiar with David Michelinie's writing, so this is really great to read some of his stuff, especially from DC. And yeah, I mean, some of the twists and turns of this issue just feels really like very comic booky. Like this is like I don't know, that's a really weird way of saying it, but like this is what I enjoy about comics is characters being put into these situations that are very, that determine a lot about their characters and the characters around them going forward. And, even after the baby has passed, like, Topo's pretty much just like, I don't want anything to do with you anymore. Like, you basically were trying to kill me.
Well, it's not Topo, it's Aqualad. Topo's
oh, my bad. I got that mixed up. Anyway, yeah, but Aqualad just totally, leaves Aquaman now. So it's kind of interesting to see, how it goes forward. But yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you have any like weird thoughts on the fact that it's David McClany? Because obviously you know him. I guess not super long after this, writing Iron Man for the first time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
You have anything to add on it?
Yeah. I mean, not a ton. I mean, like, we covered the plot and everything like that. There's huge stuff here. Aquababy is dead, but also, I mean, you have multiple iconic like panels and Aquaman moments in here. There's obviously the death of Aquababy, and there's, I think, the panel where Black Manta is holding him in the globe of air is a very iconic Aquaman panel, and then the panel where Arthur realizes that he's dead. But also, there's the panel where he says, "Hey, why do you think they call me Black Manta?" And he takes off his mask. And so this is also the issue where Black Manta reveals that he's black.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I mean, this is like from past like his origin issue, which is like late 50s or something, or like early 60s. This is probably like the most important Aquaman issue. Well, past his origin and then his wedding, and then I think Aquababy's born like in the same issues, or no, it's not the same issue as the wedding, but past the origin issue, past the wedding, past Aquababy's birth. This is probably like the most important issue of Aquaman until like, I don't know, like Peter David cuts his hand off or has it bit off, I should say. Like this is crucial Aquaman stuff.
That would be a little weird if the birth was the same issue as the marriage.
No, it's not. But
no.
It's not like they reference like it's not like they, there's not a sex scene or anything like that. But Aquababy is announced and then born in the same exact issue. Like there's no pregnancy over more than one issue. Which I found strange. But I guess it makes sense for, 1960s comic books. I don't know. I'm kind of like low-key a huge Aquaman fan. And DC is putting out a deluxe hardcover of this. And despite the fact, and which is great because the trade paperback has been hard to find for several years. And despite the fact that I have 2 copies of that trade paperback, I think I'm probably going to upgrade to the hardcover.
The best part about this is the reason why he has 2 of these is the very first time ever we did our yearly or annual, it means the same thing, Harrisburg trip. He found this in a Books A Million, and then he tried to get everyone to buy it. And then no one wanted to buy it because it was like $14. And he's like, well, it's like $80 online. And then what happened is no one bought it, but he bought it. And then I was waiting for him to sell it and get that return on profit, and he never did. And now he might be missing the opportunity.
Yeah. It's on X Hamster too, by the way.
What?
Go back and watch that video. That's what you said.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know what?
He's like, if you want to buy it, contact me on X Hamster.
Oh.
I
don't know how you remember that. But yeah, actually, there are several books that I need to get up on eBay or.
I mean, one of the books later on this week you might find on that site.
Yeah. So that's the S.H.I.E.L.D. It's a cool issue, and I would say, given the time period and everything, one of our highlight retro books.
Well, it is this is Bronze Age, correct?
Yeah.
All right. It reads very much like a modern book. Like I think it's ahead of its time for the way it's written.
Yeah, I mean, sort of.
At least the way it read to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. It didn't feel very 70s.
Okay, but now into new books.
Yeah, and the books that came out this week, we're going to start with Action Comics number 1015. Brian Michael Bendis, and is it Seisman or Simon Kudransky? That's the artist on this. The whole issue here is just Naomi crash lands in Metropolis, and Superman kind of takes her under her wing and teaches her how to use her powers. He takes her to the Hall of Justice, introduces her to the Wonder Twins, also brings in Batman to investigate where she's from, along with Dr. Ray Palmer, to figure out where from the multiverse she's from. But then Superman gets whisked away to deal with Leviathan bullshit, and that's the issue. Also, we get more stuff with Rose and Thorn and the Red Cloud, and cool. It's been like 15 issues of this, and the story ain't moving anywhere. And this book to me is now plopped into dropping territory, because I don't feel like it's going anywhere, which is the issue. And then it just abruptly ends during this fight between Superman and the Red Cloud. It just felt like a mismatch of things that Bendis wanted to do in this issue. I was like, oh, I want to have Naomi meet Superman, but also I gotta also space out the Rose and Thorn and Red Cloud stuff I've been doing. Oh, wait, the issue's over. I thought really kind of mismanaged plot pacing here, and overall, the story is wearing thin, and having the fact that Leviathan is running through this, Lois Lane, kind of Jimmy Olsen, and then Event Leviathan, I'm kind of at that point where I just kind of want to wash my hands of all of it and go, all right, who is it, so I can be done with it? Because having 4 books kind of all at the same time dealing with this, and not one of them getting any closer to telling me what the hell is going on in this story, is growing tiresome very quickly. That's Action Comics 1015.
I remember like a few issues. I think it was like probably a few months ago. I read one of the Action Comics. I just was not interested. I think it was probably around the beginning of this storyline, but yeah, I wasn't really a fan of it then. So
yeah, I just it's like this and Superman both need to start moving and getting paid. So he's done 15 issues on Rogol Zar and Superman, which is a book we're not covering on the show, just because none of us are actively reading it. I kind of ancillarily know what's going on, but I have been reading this kind of from the beginning, and just nothing's happening. Like, you have to eventually go somewhere, and when you have 4 books that are dealing with this big overarching story arc, we need the plot to move a little bit here. We're closing in on what, year 2 of Bendis on Superman books, and he's been doing one overarching story arc in each book. I would have thought we would have had more stories by the way. But that I'm done talking. Much rather talk about Amazing Spider-Man.
all right, so segueing into Amazing Spider-Man Volume 5, number 30, we pick up with is his name this guy that's like visiting Mysterio? Is his name Kindred? Is that his name?
I'm going with
Or
Kindred.
what's this guy's name? That is that his name?
Kindred. We're going with Kindred.
Okay. Yeah, because I think that's what he says here in the book. So he's talking to Mysterio. It assumes, I'm pretty sure he kills him.
Yeah, that's a flashback.
So he then goes to Ravencroft. Oh, it's a flashback. That's right. I forgot. It's been a while since I've read this book. Anyway, that's what sucks about reading this stuff like, bi-weekly, is that I kind of forget things. Anyway, so we get this Kindred guy going to visit somebody in Ravencroft, and it is none other than Norman Osborn. We then pan to Spider-Man talking about the symbiote and how it first came to Earth, flashing back to obviously Secret Wars, where he was first infected with the symbiote. Not infected, but I guess attached to the symbiote. Kind of get just a recap of the whole, symbiote story, very Cliff Notes version. Venom Carnage, and then everyone else get infected at some point or another. You know how Marvel works, and pretty much explaining, what's going on in Absolute Carnage. This is an Absolute Carnage crossover. So we pretty much are explaining about that. I won't go into too much detail about that on this issue, obviously. But pretty much what's happening in the main Spider-Man issue is that Peter is protecting Normie Osborn, his godson, and Dylan Brock, who is, I guess, Eddie Brock's son. So we kind of get a little side quest with the two of them, Peter keeping them safe. And then the rest of the issue is pretty much Peter facing off against Carnage, who I guess technically is Cletus Cassidy, but it's actually Norman Osborn. I'm not really sure. They referenced a little bit about the Red Goblin, which I thought was a little weird. I'm not sure if that was mentioned in Absolute Carnage. But throughout this fight, we do get flashbacks to Pete with his friends. And the reason why I like this issue is that these flashbacks kind of remind me of like the old late 60s, early 70s of Spider-Man with all these characters all together. Gwen, MJ, Flash, Harry Osborn. During this whole fight, we kind of get flashbacks between those two, and then we pan back to Kindred talking to Norman at Ravencroft, and basically explain to him like why he's probably one of the best villains for Spider-Man, because he basically, like, I guess, presents to Peter like no hope, that like it's it's a weird way he explains it, but like it makes sense like with how Norman Osborn is. And then we finally get a last splash page where Norman comes out of the Carnage suit. So I'm assuming that's like a big reveal. And it's going to be continued in, I guess, Absolute Carnage. I'm not sure if it's going to get referenced in there, but to be honest, I know this is a crossover, and I know it's by cutting into the storyline that we have already going with Amazing Spider-Man, but this is actually not that bad, to me at least, in terms of a crossover issue. I don't think it really, like, it's a good crossover issue to read. It doesn't make me feel like I'm like taken out of the book. I mean, I am taken out of the book, but it's not too bad as to like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm reading this. I'm curious to see what you guys think, but that's kind of my take on it.
No, I'd agree. I think it's very much a filler issue, but at the same time a building issue, because we're getting back to Kindred, who we haven't seen since that kind of mini Mysterio arc that we saw. But I thought having the Kindred stuff being worked in with the Carnage stuff, I thought was a good marriage to keep things moving. And Ryan Otley's back on art here. It's the return of Ryan Otley on interiors, not just to cover the book. And it was kind of I'm happy he's back, because this issue was kind of just, all right, Otley, go crazy drawing Spider-Man Carnage fight, and it's really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing the next issue. This and the next issue are both going to be Absolute Carnage tie-ins, and then after that, we're into the 2099 event. So the book's kind of on this stranglehold of event fatigue that might happen, but we get issues like this where Spencer's continuing to build his story with Kindred as his big new villain, but also seamlessly be able to work it into the big Spider-Man centric event that's happening with Absolute Carnage and Venom. I have no complaints. I thought it was a pretty good issue. There's a lot of tie-in issues that I've seen in the past that could have easily just wrote this off or could have gotten a guest writer, but no, Spencer keeps the foundation of his run completely building throughout here, and I thought a very, very good, solid building issue.
Yeah, it was really awesome to see Otley draw Venom for like one panel. There's just kind of a pinup shot for like half a page, which looked really nice. I'm not 100% certain on the continuity of this, because Kindred is interacting with Norman in a cell in a straitjacket, and then Norman has the Carnage symbiote of some sort. But then it's like, how does that line up with Absolute Carnage?
It lines up because all that stuff was a flashback
of Kindred interacting with Carnage.
Well, that I don't. Because interacting with Norman, that was still a flashback, because he killed Mysterio and then was like walking around Ravencroft.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't clear to me. Yeah, it was nice to see the flashbacks. I feel like the big deal here, and what some of the people have noted is that Kindred claims, which doesn't mean it's necessarily true, that Peter yells out Gwen's name in his sleep, which I feel like is not really a necessary thing. I don't really like that. It's not a huge deal, but I don't like that. Especially,
big thing is, who is Kindred?
well, yeah, that's another mystery.
He knows a lot about Peter Parker, which is why I'm still banking on the theory that it's the husk dead body of Peter Parker that died when Ock switched bodies with him.
That would be weird.
Well, he's got the 4 tendrils in the back, and he knows an awful lot about Peter Parker. It would make sense, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, or you can tie it somehow to One More Day. I mean, it could be.
I saw that theory floating around too. I like him though. He's definitely interesting. He's got the bug motif going on. I think he works.
Yeah, very interested. And again, similar to the last issue, we had that ring tease, and Kindred has been a tease since literally the beginning of the run, before the run, the Free Comic Day story. But again, it's like, when is this going to conclude? It's definitely not concluding in these Absolute Carnage tie-ins. No. And it's not going to be tied to 2099. So,
well, we don't know that. He could show up. You never know.
Yeah, he could show up, but they're not going to finish this Kindred thing, which has been running the entire run at the same time as doing the 2099 thing. So, it's a slow build, and we're not going to see the conclusion of this until at the very minimum 7 issues from now. And then we have the marriage ring possibilities floating around as well. Very exciting. Even early on to this, when we started doing this show and talking about this series, I've been very impressed with how Spencer handles his subplotting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a slow burn, and he does things very well, building and getting to it when he gets to it. And I have no problem with that, because it looks like he's locked in for a pretty long run.
Yeah, well, there's the thing, and it's worth the comparison. Other writers do slow burn, decompressed stuff, and it doesn't work quite as well. I mean, you basically said earlier that Bendis has been doing the same thing, but you're not liking how he's executing.
Well, I'm not liking Bendis's execution because it's the same story. We haven't gotten any other mini stories in between. It's always still been who is Leviathan from the very beginning. With this, like, we've had Hunted, we've had the stuff with MJ, we've had the Mysterio stuff, we've had the stuff with the Sinister Syndicate, the Syndicate, and then we had all this stuff with Boomerang, like. But at the same time, all Lizard as well. All of this has been happening, and then also with the Kindred stuff. With Bendis' stuff on Superman, it's been Rogol Zar in Superman, and then it's been Leviathan in Action through 3 other books. So that's the difference.
All right, that's SpiderMan.
Angel number 5. It's the last issue of the Hellmouth event prelude between the Buffy and Angel books. So we'll have Buffy and Angel, and then starting next month, we're going to have the Hellmouth miniseries that all these books are going to cross over into each other. We opened with Gunn, who we saw in the last issue, being hinted at as Angel as the person. He has to go track down Gunn as part of his team. Gunn is hunting vampires in the inner cities of Los Angeles, and he's like Facebook Live-ing his like vampire huntings, and he's going after the guy he's going after, and it cuts to a flashback when he was a kid, his first encounter with the vampire. He was running away from the cops, and there's a guy that like stopped and said like, "Hey," to get in to try to help him get away, and it was revealed they take him to a back alley. And it's revealed to be a vampire, and then it kills his friend, but he was able to escape. So that's why he's on this crusade against vampires, and he's trying to find the one that killed his friend. Angel tracks down his location and ends up doing a mini team up with him. And then he just takes him out for a burger, and basically lays everything on the table. And he's like, "This might sound weird. There's a demon who's steering me in the right direction. By the way, I'm also a vampire, but I've got a soul and I'm good. And if you want to help me fight evil, here's my card. Meet me at my apartment. But first, I got to go to Sunnydale and do this thing. But I look forward to having you there." And then Angel then heads to Sunnydale, and we see him at the Halloween party that we saw him at back in Buffy #5. And then also Gunn does end up going to Angel's apartment and he meets Fred. But yep, next month, Hellmouth #1, as this is all going to converge. Really good issue by Brian Edward Hill. He gets the characters really, really well here, and Gleb Melnikov's art continues to be very, very good. I think both the Angel and the Buffy books have been very, very strong from Boom, and their Buffy line.
All right, good shit. The phrase "final issue of the Prelude" kind of annoys me.
Well, I think it was Buffy #5 or Buffy 6 and Angel 5 that it was only one issue each that was Prelude.
Yeah. So Avengers #24. This is the Challenge of the Ghost Riders arc. So there's two plots going on here. There's the plot with the Avengers, the main Avengers, and then in Hell with the two Ghost Riders. So I'm gonna split them up just to make it easier to digest. So the Hell part, all the other riders in Hell, Robbie, I ran across them, and I don't really know what their status quo is. Like if Johnny is like, "Hey, you guys hang out here," or like force them to be there, if they're there by default, if they would be somewhere else otherwise, because they don't really seem to be down with the whole living in Hell thing. Also, they just shit talk on Johnny. They're hyping up Robbie, and there may be some like underlying thing here. Johnny, like I was thinking for a while, maybe Johnny's pulling the strings and doing this on purpose to motivate Robbie because he has ulterior motives. But they're basically saying, yeah, Johnny's a dick. He's just as corrupt as all the other Hell Lords. There's no such thing as a noble master of Hell. And then to prove that point, Johnny gets Robbie's Uncle Eli to possess an evil celestial, which I guess is from, I believe, the first arc of this series, or the second, or an early arc. And there's no footnote for it, which kind of annoyed me. I guess the argument could be it's the same series, so if you're reading 24, it's really easy. Just read the previous ones. That's just expected. But I would put a footnote there. The Celestial, I guess it smashes his car or something, even though we've seen his car like regenerate from nothing a billion times. And then also his parents are in Hell, possibly dead or none of the above. Could all be bullshit. Who knows? There's a few there's a few interesting lines from Johnny and Robbie's meeting all the Ghost Riders and stuff like that. And this is the part of the story that I care about more. But then on the Avengers side, we have Thor and She-Hulk fighting Cosmic Ghost Rider. And Cosmic Ghost Rider like refers to Frank Castle's skull in the third person, and that made me question. So, Mike, I know you read the first issue of Cosmic Ghost Rider, the miniseries. Did you read any further than that?
I think I read the first two.
Okay. And I don't think you had read any of the Donny Cates Thanos stuff, which introduced.
No,
okay. So I haven't actually read that much Cosmic Ghost Rider. I just know him as like he's popular now or whatever, and I've read a few appearances. Does he ever un-Ghost Rider?
Or he was Frank Castle.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and then he got pretty much since I've known him, like since he's been turned into Ghost. He was turned into Ghost Rider after Thanos took over the world.
Yeah, but I'm saying like similar to Johnny, Robbie, Danny, literally every other one. Does he ever like un-Rider and become essentially Frank Castle or whatever?
I think a little bit. I think there are a couple times where, he's not like in his Ghost Rider form.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot. I didn't know what you're meaning by un-Rider. Yeah. Like if there was times before he had the powers.
Yeah, because that's the thing is depending on the Ghost Rider and depending on the writer and how much they care, it's just like Captain Marvel / Shazam, where sometimes you have different personality characterizations, and sometimes they're the same. Also similar to Hulk and characters like that. But in this fight, I really hate this version of She-Hulk. I don't totally like the way Aaron writes Thor sometimes, as we've discussed, but there's some kind of fun moments here where like Mjolnir's stuck in the skull, but also that affects Cosmic Ghost Rider, his manner of speech, and becomes a pain in the ass to read. And then he smacks She-Hulk with his own skull, which is kind of a funny moment. And then I guess Black Panther can tap into the Celestial Avengers Mountain and give himself and Captain America cosmic punching powers, which is kind of silly fun. And then everyone's converging on Cosmic Ghost Rider. All the other Avengers finally show up, and something like Boy Thing comes out of nowhere, the like mini man thing. And I don't know what happens here because there's all this fire. So I guess I don't know if Boy Thing is, everything burns that the man thing's touch. So Cosmic Ghost Rider is burning, but obviously he's a Ghost Rider, so that doesn't necessarily do anything. And then is Boy Thing getting hurt? I couldn't really tell what the point of this panel was ultimately, but that motivates Blade to pull out his OP like spirit gun, which does some damage to Cosmic Ghost Rider, which gets him to chill out, and it's all a big misunderstanding fight. And then for like 4 panels, he just like info dumps the shit out of himself. And I'm like, that was a little clunky. And there's a footnote here to Guardians, but not earlier to the previous Avengers story. And then I guess Hellstorm leaves the series at this point. He's just like, yeah, I'm not taking you guys to hell. And we don't see him leave, but I assume he just dips here. And the end, Cosmic Ghost Rider is going to take the rest of the Avengers to hell to try and help Robbie out. And the like gag thing is Cosmic Ghost Rider, from his perspective, thinks that he's joined the Avengers. It was a fine issue, not as interesting as the other ones. I'm more interested in the Ghost Rider stuff. I don't care as much about Cosmic Ghost Rider. It's whatever. And also, I'm kind of doubting that Danny shows up in this arc at all at this point.
Yeah, I think I'm off of this book. I don't enjoy any of the Avengers bits in it.
Yeah, it doesn't really even feel like an Avengers book.
Yeah, I only like the Ghost Rider stuff, and it still feels like there's such an inconsistent way that they're writing Johnny Blaze right now. They're writing Johnny Blaze as a vindictive, evil asshole in Avengers, but he's like kind of a caring, wants to transform the way Hell's ruled in the other Ghost Rider stuff we've seen, where he doesn't know how to control his powers and he's trying to learn. So very two clear different takes on this new status quo right now, which is a problem. So I'm off this. And then the stuff with the Avengers, I don't care what's going on. Because it's a Ghost Rider centric arc, and I'm more interested with that. And the Avengers are just kind of there, which is bad. Yeah. It's the Avengers book.
I'm not really certain how many more parts of this story are left, but I'm at least going to stick with it just in the off chance that Danny Ketch shows up.
All right.
And now we have more Avengers.
Oh, yeah.
Third Avengers book we read this week.
Yep. So this book is Avengers Loki Unleashed, another Marvel 80 Years one-shot, written by Roger Stern, drawn by Ron Lim, penciled by Scott Hanna, I believe, right? So, yeah, so pretty much the story we pick up with Loki and Asgard, just chilling, looking at this globe, and then this girl's talking to him, being like, why don't you pay attention to me? And then he just makes her disappear. And then this other girl shows up, and she's like, I want to help you. I want to be your
Loki's wife.
Yeah, exactly. So she's chilling there, and then he's like, I need to go to this planet to get this energy that will help Asgard. And then we pretty much pan to the events that happened right after the Under Siege storyline, which, as all of us know, is one of the few story arcs that Roger Stern had under his run back in the 1980s with Avengers. specifically around 273 to 277. So we pick up with Tony and Cap walking through Avengers Mansion, looking at all the damage from the Masters of Evil. And what I have to say here, just a side note, the suit that Tony is wearing is the exact same suit he wears in, I forget what issue it is, like 280 something, where he goes to see Jarvis in the hospital because Jarvis was in like really beat up by the Masters of Evil.
Oh, wow. That's
so
pretty cool.
You know what I'm saying? That's a pretty cool detail. Obviously, all the other costumes you're going to get right because you just got to look at those issues to see, like, okay, Wasp is wearing her yellow and black, outfit, whatever.
When Thor's got the beard to hide his scars from the stuff that happened in Walt Simonson's run.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah,
there's
so this is all
5 footnotes. It's pretty awesome.
What'd you say?
There's like 5 footnotes in this issue. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it's awesome. Like, and I mean, I hate to interrupt, but like, oh my God, isn't it great to see the Avengers as friends working together?
I know, like this has to be probably one of my favorite eras of Avengers stuff. I really did like Roger Stern's run. I haven't read the whole run, but what I did read, I really enjoyed. So this is a good team. As we pan to Monica Rambeau going to see Jarvis's mother, Abigail, I believe her name is, and they're kind of just talking back and forth about Jarvis and his role in the Avengers. And then we pan to Tony putting on his Silver Centurion suit, which, as we know at this time, he's wearing. I believe this is like right at the beginning of the Armor Wars, like right around that era. So he's still wearing that armor, obviously. But he's serving as a West Coast Avenger. So he came up to see Jarvis and all that stuff. And they're kind of talking about the status of the Avengers Mansion when suddenly Loki's wife comes through and is saying, like, you need to come help him. He's stuck in this planet. And they're like, yeah, this is obviously a trap. Loki is an asshole, and he is definitely going to try to lure us in for a final battle. Until Doctor Strange shows up and is like, yo, guys, he's actually telling the truth. You need to come with us to this planet. And they all go through this portal, and we get some really great moments of, like, different people teaming up. We get, like, Cap and Iron Man teaming up, and, just some really good fighting moments. When we get to this planet, Loki is fighting this guy. I think his name's like Ian or something, and he has this power that Loki was trying to get for Asgard. So as they're fighting, we get a cool splash page with Thor. Another cool splash page with Monica Rambeau, coming in between Ian and Loki. So really cool to see her having some, screen time, I guess, in this issue. And, the Avengers are pretty much about to, like, stop the fight when this Ian guy pretty much shuts Loki up and it's like, I'm going to destroy all of you guys. And then sure enough, the Living Tribunal shows up and is like, yo, we got to stop what's going on here. And that's pretty much what happens. I think, at the end, Loki kind of comes back to Asgard and is sitting down. He's like, I don't know what's worse, that, I was the one who created the Avengers, or like I'm the one who's responsible for the creation of the Avengers, or the fact that the Avengers are the reason why I'm still alive. Because pretty much if it wasn't for them showing up and stopping Ian and, getting the Living Tribunal involved, he would have been dead. So this is probably one of the best one-shots I've read of all these here. And yeah, I really enjoy this. I mean, Roger Stern, it doesn't seem like he skipped a beat at all after returning here, and Ron Lim's art is great. It looks weird seeing his art, with like modern colors, but it's just amazing. I really dug this, and I'm curious to see what you guys thought.
So I don't know where you got Ian or whatever from. I kind of sped through parts of this issue just based on timing. But are you talking about Ceesnag or whatever?
It might be. I don't know.
Yeah, he's
probably way off.
He's from an arc in Marvel. Here's the second volume. It's the Steve Englehart run, which is like it's in A Separate Reality Epic Collection. Yeah, I really enjoyed this issue. All the footnotes, like Stern really, like, jammed this in to continuity and matched it up completely. And honestly, I'd expect that Stern did all that heavy lifting and not whoever got tasked with editing this. Not to totally shit on them, but I just assume it was Stern. And I was kind of surprised by the Ron Lim art. It's not even just the coloring; it's a lot like more cartoony than I would expect from him, and almost like Ron. It seems strange to say because circa Infinity War and stuff like that, Ron Lim was kind of considered a fairly 90s style dude and a very popular artist, but this iteration of Ron Lim, you could put on an all ages book.
Yeah, his style on this is very kind of blocky. It almost reminds me a little of Ryan Ottley. I think the colors were a little bit muted. I'd like to see a little bit more striking colors, a little bit more primaries thrown in there to really make it pop. But this was my pick of the week as far as things I enjoyed. This was great. Classic feel to the Avengers, obviously with Roger Stern at the helm. Classic team. They were working together. No one hated each other. This was exactly what I wanted out of Avengers book. Plus classic villains like Loki. Doctor Strange showed up, which gets bonus points in my book for enjoyment. Loved this. Top to bottom, loved this.
Yeah, pretty glowing reviews.
I'd say this and the Incredible Hulk Last Call by Peter David are probably two of my favorites with these 80th anniversary specials.
Yeah, I've been picking up the ones that interest me, and very interested to see how they split this up. I think they're doing some of it thematically for collections, like putting some X-Men related stuff together. I think almost all of these I've enjoyed. I don't remember which ones we've skipped or not enjoyed, but
there were some Spider-Man ones that were rough.
Well, yeah, the one that was the true story of the black suit was kind of weak.
Yeah.
But you guys weren't as strong on it, but I liked the one with the Eric Larson thing.
Yeah, with the 3 pages of Eric Larson art.
Yeah.
Detective Comics number 1012, Peter Tomasi and Doug Mankey's back on art as we're finally getting into this Mr. Freeze arc that's been teased over the last 4 issues. We call this Freeze Frame, and we open up with a big old close-up on Batman's face as snow is falling. We also get the footnote this issue happens before Batman number 77 because Alfred's still around. But you're not convincing me he's dead. You're gonna do it.
It's not just Alfred. It's the city of Bane status quo.
I know. But still, I just want to say it. Mr. Freeze is out in the Gotham Pine Barrens, sending these goons that he has to just kidnap these women that have similar looks and body features to his wife Nora because he needs them for what he's about to do to Nora to try to make her well again. The gift that he got from Lex Luthor is he doesn't need his power suit to survive outside, so he's just walking around like normal Mr. Freeze without the power suit, while Batman is sitting in the garage of the Batcave tuning up the Batwing as he's listening to the intercom. Alfred's helping, Bruce is lifting weights. So he gets the call to go in because one of the thugs messed up and one of the women were injured and hit on the head, and because they thought Freeze wanted them all pristine and not injured, they kind of just booked it. But she woke up and called into the police, which springs Batman into action to investigate what the hell's going on, which brings him to the GCPD, and Harvey Bullock's back. Guys, this is great. It's Batman and Bullock teaming up because Gordon's not present due to the events that happened in Batman Who Laughs when he was kidnapped. But this is basically just Batman's doing detective stuff, figuring out what's going on as Freeze is putting his plan into motion. And at the house, Freeze goes, "No, you got to get that woman back and make sure you get there before she wakes up." And the goons go back to the house, and Batman's there waiting, and we're out. So the next issue will pick up. Doug Mankey being back is a welcome surprise. I thought he was done, but having him back is great. He drew the first part of this this run with Tomasi, and it looks tremendous. And the story is still really good. This amped up fast after I know we weren't super hot on the Mr. Freeze backups, but just truly great pages of both Batman and Mr. Freeze in the snow. I like this a lot. I thought it was fun. I'm curious to see where it goes.
Yeah. I was a little put off at first by the first like 2 or 3 pages, I think, where the first page is like this kind of like totally unnecessary, like bullshit, like monologue about snowflakes and stuff, and I'm like, I don't care. Just like I don't like that kind of writing typically in comic books unless you're writing like Sandman. And then there's also like a weird comment about the boats and stuff, and I think this is Tomasi trying to reference, the whole Bat Cat boat in the street thing. That's
Yeah,
the way it's just not very. It wasn't very clear. It seems obvious that that's what he's doing, but it's also not obvious, if that makes remote sense. And so it took me a second, and it's not like they could have done an inset panel of Selina or something like that. But they said the word Selina, I'm pretty sure.
No, Batman calls out Selina when looking at the snow.
So the idea is, I guess, paralleling Selina and Nora in some way as it transitions over to the freeze part, which is interesting. But I feel like he didn't really hit that on the head quite as much. And
I can agree with that. Though I will say that he gets bonus points for me for having a Norm Brayfogle landmark referencing Gotham City.
I was going to mention
that. And I thought the weightlifting part was really interesting to me, because if you follow Mankey on Twitter, he's a weightlifting dude. And in fact, like he's like straight up like competed in like semi-professional weightlifting competitions and does like the deadlift type of stuff and everything like that. And so I feel like Tomasi was like, hey, what do you want to draw Bruce doing in the Batcave? Or like, do you want to draw him weightlifting? And Mankey was like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm gonna draw Bruce Wayne with the best form ever. And I'm pretty sure that Mankey was like overjoyed drawing those pages, and I think that's really cool.
Well, I will say though, like the banter between Bruce and Alfred, Tomasi writes, is always very solid.
Yeah, and I think now that we've finally gotten into the arc after the totally unnecessary epilogue pages in like the past entire arc, I think Tomasi has a good handle on Freeze now. I don't totally like his current designs and stuff like that. And some of that is You're the Villain related, and that applies to every villain right now. But just in general, I feel like it's hard because the most iconic Freeze design is from the animated show. And it's like, if you translate that to an artist who's a little bit more of a realism style, like Mankey, it can come off a little cartoony.
Well, at the end of the day, though, he's got the blue skin and he's got the red goggles, and it looks like Mr. Freeze. If you wanted to compare it very briefly to the Mr. Freeze we've seen over in our No Man's Land show, I will take this version of Mr. Freeze any day of the week over the one in No Man's Land.
Yeah, but I think Tomasi handles, now that we've actually gotten to it, he handles Freeze really well on the writing side, because he still has that sympathetic angle of Nora. And he's trying to fix everything for them, but then also like the scene where he like freezes the guy's head and then it shatters on the ground is really threatening. That's pretty much my thoughts.
Yeah, I think, for me at least, like not reading a lot of like Batman stuff, like when I think of like a, I guess, Mr. Freeze type of storyline, this kind of like, I kind of envision something like this, and it's kind of, again, I'm really enjoying Detective Comics, so really excited.
Well, really, you need to watch the episode of the animated series called Heart of Ice, and then you can just go, all right, every Mr. Freeze story I'm going to read is always going to be worse than this, but like there's your marker.
Yeah.
But, like this is pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is good.
I don't know when we did that.
I feel like Heart of Ice is almost like critical, like that's like needed viewing for Batman.
I think I did when I was like really little. I remember like renting a VHS tape and like
It won a primetime Emmy.
Oh, did it really? Well, there you go.
All right, go watch Heart of Ice and read Detective Comics as we move into the next issue.
All right, so Captain America Volume 9, number 14. So, we open to one of the people from, I forget what they're called. I think they're like called like the Daughters of like they're like the Captain America's like little posse that's like being head up by
Like
Sharon
the Daughters
Carter.
of Freedom or the Daughters of the Flag or something.
Yeah, something like that.
It's Echo.
Yeah, I think her name's Echo. Yeah. So she's walking in to a bar and we pretty much just get like a whole fight scene with her trying to find like this one guy that has information that they'll need. Well, actually, no, she ends up beating the shit out of everybody.
Yeah, she beats the whole bar up.
Never mind. So yeah, then we also have Is it White Tiger? That's her name, right?
Yeah, it's Steve Rogers, White Tiger, and Echo.
Echo, okay. So they end up finding this base that's actually part of the Watchdogs, and I believe that's like deep in like Captain America lore, but I still haven't read a lot of like Captain America stuff yet, so I'm not really familiar with them. So they end up kind of going to this base. I forget who they're trying to track down. Are they trying to track down Zemo?
Yeah, they're trying to track down the people that have taken the.
Oh no,
it's not Zemo. It's to take out that have taken out Strucker.
Yeah.
And then Thunderbolt Ross, like all the people like that, and the Watchdogs have been part of that, along with they were freeing the people at the border camps as well.
That's right. So yeah, I forgot about that. So pretty much they're trying to make their way through this like underground base, and they run into AIM again. There's some jokes made about AIM and how stupid they are because of their freaking. I still, it's crazy to me how like in 2019 their outfit has still not changed since their conception. It's
and I'm so happy for that.
I know it's just so dorky and stupid, but I love that they don't change it. So yeah, we get some really cool action scenes. We find out that apparently there's like lives, like originally Cap's team thinks that they're actually killing people down in the basement because they're recognizing that life sources are going away. Turns out they're actually sending these people through a portal. And Cap tries to go through the portal and tries to stop, what's going on with these people getting transferred over, and he can't get there in time, and like the portal just closes behind him. We do get a fight between White Tiger and I cannot remember for the life of me who this woman was.
It's Sin, the Red Skull's daughter.
Oh, fuck that. Sin, the Red Skull's daughter. Wasn't she in Fear Itself?
Yeah, she's part of Brubaker's run though.
Okay, yeah. So
she goes to the portal and she's with Crossbones again.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, she does end up going through the portal, and she ends up meeting up with Crossbones, like you said, and yeah, and then we get a little shot here where Nick Fury kind of has to answer for what Cap is. I think what Cap is doing, like off the board without Shield. So there's really, this is again just some more setup for what's coming, but I mean, I still like this. I mean, this issue, like Mike and I were discussing offline, this read very fast. There wasn't a lot of action, very fluid, which I enjoyed. I thought the art was really dynamic, a lot of good coloring going on and shadows and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm really excited to read this. I'm probably gonna end up getting this whole series in trade when it comes out because I haven't read like the first I think the first story arc I haven't read, so still trying to put pieces together from that. But yeah, I'm really liking this. And again, just to mention too, Alex Ross cover, can't beat that throughout all these issues.
Alex Ross covers are really good. Like
They
they're
really
really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's this and Immortal Hulk. He's really killing it on. But I enjoyed this a lot. It's a kind of a big espionage action. Is the action just keeps ramping, and now we know our players that are all involved here, and we get the hint that Steve Rogers is knowing that he's not being fed the entire information because of the Dryad and the stuff with he doesn't know Aunt Peggy's back. So it's hinting the next issue is that he's kind of going off on his own to figure out what's going on with the Daughters of Liberty, and what they're trying to hide from him. But this is still really, really good. I look forward to just being able to breeze through this all at once with like those sexy Marvel hardcovers that they put out. Because honestly, they make the best. I think Marvel has the corner in the deluxe hardcover game when it comes to just like those are just satisfying to sit and read in your hand. But yeah, the Coates' run and hopefully hardcover is going to be great to read, or an omnibus. I'll take either.
Yeah.
No, this continues to be really good.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't read it, but I will note they have solicited the first oversized hardcover.
All right.
What do you guys think created the Watchdogs?
Mark Grunwald?
Rob Liefeld.
Yeah.
Was it really?
Yeah, it's Grunwald.
Wait, I was wrong. It's
Yes,
Grunwald.
it's Grunwald.
I mean, if you had to guess, that'd probably be the first person, right?
Yeah.
I was gonna say it was like you really only have 3 guesses. It's Grunwald, it's Wade, or it's like Englehart or Kirby.
Yeah.
Criminal Volume 3, number 8. It's Brubaker and it's Phillips, and it continues to be fantastic. Cruel Summer rolls right on. This issue focuses all on. Help me out if I'm wrong. Her name is Jane, right? Teague's new girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
As they're setting up their big heist, and she's kind of concerned with just, all right, after this heist, we're going to go off to the beach somewhere. But she has like this sense of feeling in the back of her head that something's going to go wrong, and she's wondering what it's going to be. And then she centers on, oh, wait, where the hell has Ricky Lawless been? Because we saw the last issue, he left with a gun and wanting to kill that homeless man that he'd seen in juvie. So this issue all centers on Jane trying to track down where Ricky is and try to stop him from doing something horrible that would end up basically just torpedoing their whole operation that she's planning with Teague and Teague's crew. She does track down Ricky Lawless in a bar where she meets an old friend, but she dives out very quickly to go get Ricky, and she sees him on the street with a gun where he's almost going to take the shot at the homeless guy, but they end up following him to whatever kind of drug den he goes into, and Jane just like kind of helps him suffocate, and they do kill him. So that was kind of a big moment. But as they're driving away, we cut back to the bar, and the bartender who Jane was talking to is phoning up one of her friends who said, "Hey, this Jane girl's back in town, and doesn't she, someone's paying for information on her because doesn't she know money to someone?" And it's all right. We can see how this is all going to come falling down as this continues on. Brubaker's solid. Phillips is great. It's consistently one of the best drawn books in comics. Really, you should be reading this.
Yep. I mean, I don't know if this was just me, but I had this weird feeling that like when Jane and what's his name, Ricky, is that the son's name?
Yeah, Ricky Lawless.
When they got into the car, I thought something else was going to go down, but I'm like, I don't know if Brubaker would do something weird like that. But
I don't think that I never got that hint. I got the hint that Jane was looking out for Ricky and wanting to steer him away, but
it just seems,
obviously they let go end up killing the guy.
Yeah, it just seems to me like she's a little scummy, and she probably would do something like that, but maybe not.
I mean, she's been loyal to Teague the whole time, but we have seen her end up. I mean, she's a very interesting character the way this has gone, and Cruel Summer has all been in a different view the whole time. So it's like each issue centers on someone else. And reading the back matter of the book, I believe the next issue is centering on Ricky's friend, the one with the glasses, who was the main character in the in the Bad Weekend arc.
Yep.
So Brubaker's playing with this different POV in every issue, and it's very fun seeing how connecting the pieces and seeing how this is all going to fall into place.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. It's an amazing issue, amazing series. There's again, like similar issues I've pointed out, just funny isolated bits. The Ricky Jane, we saw this earlier where like Jane, she's not really like that invested in Ricky, and Ricky's definitely not that invested in her, but she will like give him gifts or like make references, and at first he like rubs against it, but then he's like, "Yeah, you're actually kind of cool." And so in this, we see that she gave him Joy Division records that he's really into.
Yeah.
And then I try and, when I have the time, I try and read the back matter in these, because this is like one of the few comics where that matters. And Brubaker talks about how Kirkman spent extra money to get color pages in an issue of Walking Dead to advertise Criminal, like when it was very, very early on, which at the time was published by competitor Marvel. So I have no idea how that worked out. I'm assuming it only could have worked out because even though it was at Marvel under the Icon imprint, it was partially creator. It was, well, pretty much it was creator owned. I doubt that could happen now, even in a similar scenario, but it doesn't really matter because Marvel doesn't do anything remotely creator owned anymore within the past several years. And Brubaker called
the most they don't sign their guys exclusive, and they do let them go off to Image and do their own creative owned stuff at the same time.
Brubaker calls The Walking Dead the, quote, most successful indie comic book of all time, which it's impossible to verify because comic book sales numbers are entirely bullshit and everything like that. But that's an interesting thing for me to think about, because basically it's like The Walking Dead, obviously it didn't launch to huge numbers, and then it was a slow build, and then for tons and tons and tons of issues it was Image's best-selling book besides like Saga or something. And then obviously it sold a shitload of trades. But how does that balance out with Spawn, which for the first like 50 issues sold like a bajillion copies? I'm not sure. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if The Walking Dead has the crown, but
I think it's very believable for Walking Dead to have the crown when you take into account the staying power that brand had for so many years, and it still exists with the mass amounts of merchandise, clothes, toys. We're talking 2 TV shows with, I keep hearing, maybe a third from AMC, and then the video games.
Yeah, but none of that matters. It matters, oddly, it matters more for Walking Dead than other comics due to magic.
Well, I know. I mean, we're not walking around with the Spawn TV show with 2 Spawn TV shows on.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying the other media stuff. I mean, obviously there are billion-dollar Avengers movies, and that doesn't help the Avengers books that much.
No, but I would say it helped the Walking Dead book, because I know people that aren't that much into comics but like the Walking Dead, and Walking Dead's the only comic they've ever read.
Yeah, and then also Brubaker has a quick note about Darwin Cook and about how he and Phillips are helping editorially or creatively something on the a final belated deluxe reprint of Darwin Cook's Parker graphic novels from IDW. So that's interesting. I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah, I didn't know he was doing that. But it was a cool write-up. Him and talking with Jimmy Palmiotti at New York Comic Con, where they had the realization they're going to be telling Darwin stories forever, was a really cool moment. But yeah, I didn't know him and Phillips were overseeing that, and I'm sure they'll both do a beautiful job with those collections.
Yeah. All right, so Dial H number 7, Dial H for Hero number 7. The opening page, we get a bunch of superhero or comic book references. And then the rest of the book, there's not as many clear references, so I'll just note them here. We have a lone wolf and cub type character, the like father figure dude, who has Usagi Yojimbo essentially on his back. There's a There's like 90s Jean Grey / Image. I'd say closest to 90s Jean Grey character here.
It's like if Jean Grey mixed with Starfire.
Yeah, we got a Transformer mech type dude, and then a black and white character who I feel is closest to maybe like Adam Warren's style of Empowered fame, but it could be any 80s black and white boom thing as well. So we open. This is kind of a bridge issue. We don't really have Miguel or I think her name's Summer. Miguel or Summer really at all. This is really just showing like, hey, this is what Metropolis is like right now, or for the moment, with everyone being a superhero. And we open with this like emotional interlude about relationships and belonging of this like guy who's trying to work out and lose weight because of his boyfriend, and then he catches his boyfriend sleeping with a superhero when he thinks he shows up as a superhero is going to impress him. I thought that this little first snippet was really well done, and then the second snippet was really cool, where it's essentially a Spectre story about the healthcare industry and health insurance.
Yeah,
and it's pretty awesome. And then this one's weird. I'm not really sure what this is homaging exactly, but there's a Lucy monster hunter who goes to get revenge on her aunt, who I get maybe it's implied like her aunt killed her mother or something, or was cruel.
Yeah, it's implied that her aunt killed her mom because there was an inheritance involved.
Yeah, but then does she get killed by her aunt here too?
That's the way I read it.
Yeah.
I will say it was unclear because we do kind of just fade to black.
Yeah, she just like she shows up to her aunt, who's also not a superhero. She's like a humongous monster, and then she just kind of is like, I don't care, and then it's fades black. But along the way, she punches essentially Blanca from Street Fighter in the face.
Yeah.
And then there's futuristic detective Flamingo, who wants to investigate how Guardian Angel is such a perfect superhero. She never interacts.
Part of the issue, by the way.
Huh?
This was the best part of the issue.
Yeah, I love this. Guardian Angel is so perfect. She's always saving people. She never really says anything. She's just perfect and noble. And it turns out that Guardian Angel, when she gets depowered, is actually a service dog who is trained to dial a phone. And I don't know how
Bernard named Gretchen.
Yeah, I don't know how the mechanics of that work, but that's really fucking amazing. And then it ends with a tease of Robbie Reed and Mr. Thunderbolt. So I think it's the secret origin of Mr. Thunderbolt or something.
Yes.
So next issue we'll get into the actual, ongoing plot with Miguel and everything. This is interesting as well because I think. Did you already talk about Wonder Twins number 7? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of these 3 series or so were extended to 12 issues instead of 6, and so I figure that this issue, even though it's amazing, it does kind of feel like a bridge issue, and maybe with like, hey, short notice, we don't really want to do a skip month. I don't recall whether there may have actually been a skip month, but it doesn't seem like it.
I don't think there's been. They've stayed on schedule. Yeah,
so it may have been like slightly behind schedule as far as the notice that, hey, we're going to go for another 6. And so they're like, okay, while I think of the next plot, let's do this. And this was great. I think you could read this standalone, and it would also be a great taste tester for the series as a whole. You don't get the characterization of Miguel, which I actually do enjoy and is a major part of the series for me. But this issue, again, flexes off Quinones' is like ridiculous range artistically, which is a major part of the book.
The splash page in this, where Joe Quinones draws Super Miguel in the pose of the cover of Superman #1, is amazing.
Yeah.
Among all the other styles in this book, this book continually has the spirit that I want every DC book to have, where it's not like this dark and gloomy. It's like Miguel just wants to be a hero and do some good, and he looks to Superman as that embodiment. and it's so satisfying and so much fun. Really one of the best books DC's putting out right now. I can't praise it more. I do this every issue it comes out.
Yeah, and it's hard to say because it's sort of a minor-ish book, but I would love to see like oversized pages of this when they eventually do it. But we'll see. All right, that's Style H. Always great.
All right, so moving on to Flash Volume 5, number 79. I guess the only person still reading this book.
You've been the only person reading this book for like 3 issues now.
Yeah, I think this is probably the time where I drop off. It's just getting to the point now where I don't know what the fuck's happening. So pretty much what we have here is we open up to the last issue where a few of like Flash's friends are being held like captives so that they wouldn't get involved with, Flash's trip to go stop the Black Flash. He didn't want to endanger them. So he comes back, from the last issue. S.H.I.E.L.D was killed because he's an asshole. He was killed by Black Flash. And, they kind of do a report on him, kind of see what's going on with him and trying to figure out like what Black Flash did. But before we get to that, though, we kind of pan over to this girl that is ice skating with this little girl. I don't know what her name is, but she's basically getting recruited by all these villains that have been showing up the last few issues. They're all led by Captain Cold, and
Is it Golden Glider?
it might be. She has like a blonde ponytail.
Probably. I mean, there's not that many female Flash. There's not that many female Flash villains, so
I think it is her. So, but yeah, so they're looking at, Psyche trying to figure out what happened, and apparently, like him dying made Flash stronger, if that makes any sense. So pretty much like he's trying to figure out what's going on, and as he's walking around trying to figure it out, Iris shows up and talks to him, and it's like we have to talk about Wally, and he's like, I can't. I'm super busy right now. I have this whole Black Flash thing going on, and just as they're about to kind of resolve what's going on, Hunter shows up. So I don't know what that means to you guys, but he's pretty much just like another Flash like version that is like hunting him down, trying to kill him.
All right. This is the part where we're going to stop you. Mm-hmm. And Vince is going to explain who Hunter Zolomon is.
Okay. I mean, there's not much. He's just, well, yeah, he's Reverse Flash.
He's Reverse Flash, but he's not the Reverse Flash.
Yeah, he's supposed to be. He was Wally West's version of Reverse Flash, and he was like a friend of Wally, a coworker of Wally's, who then got like injured and then became the Reverse Flash. And he's a little bit more. He's unhinged in a slightly different way from the original Reverse Flash.
He's also got like the black eyes.
Yeah, and I guess he's messing with Barry, and that's the next arc. I know that, and I assume it'll tie into all this Rogue stuff.
I mean, I flipped through this issue, but also, why does Hunter Zolomon get to wear a better Flash suit than Barry Allen?
Yeah, I was just thinking that too. I'm like, his doesn't have any lines or anything. It looks exactly like it should.
No, it's the way the Flash suit should look, except the logo's changed, and his eyes are.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean this issue. I mean, just to wrap up here too, we have shit. What's his name? Kid Flash. What's his name?
Wallace West.
Oh, Wally. Yeah, that's right. My bad.
Both named Wally.
We have him and Amber fighting like these villains, and that's pretty much where we get like Captain Cold and all his rogue gallery coming through to fight. I guess Kid Flash. I mean, I don't know. This story just feels like it's getting pulled in two different directions. I mean, for the last few issues, this whole storyline was about Black Flash, and now with all this stuff that's going on with the villains, I mean, it seems like it's being pulled into this direction. I don't know if they're related. I mean, I'm not really interested in this storyline anymore. I feel like it's been taking too long to kind of get going, but Yeah, I just feel like I just don't have enough knowledge about what's going on to really enjoy it. So I'm probably gonna jump off at this point. But yeah, I mean the art looks good. If that's anything.
Yeah, I might try next issue. I just like this arc with the forces stuff didn't interest me. Moving into some rogues and Zoom, I might try out the next issue, but I don't expect to necessarily stay on. I mean, we were all very excited about year one, and then it went back to
because the Flash was in his normal costume
yeah, well, sort of. That's not
for,
really
for
accurate at all.
one issue.
Yeah, but then it went back to the ongoing 80 issues running subplots of this and tied into the force wall and the hidden forces and all that stuff, and I'm like, I don't care. But that's Flash. I mean, I'm sure if you're keeping up with it and you're fine with the status quo stuff, I think it's probably a pretty great book, or if not really solid.
There's nothing from Joshua Williamson's characterization that has shown me that he's a bad writer on the Flash at all.
All right, our next book is SFSX, Safe Sex, which for some reason those 4 letters in a row are difficult for me to say. I feel like this book should just be called Safe Sex. I'm sure there's some kind of like reason for this weird double title and abbreviation thing. I don't like it. I think it makes the book a little bit more confusing to look up and to remember and say its name and find. You could have cut it down. So the writer here is Tina Horn, who I think is like a prose writer, activist, so-and-so, that kind of person. Art by Mike Dowling, who I've liked on previous stuff. And this is the second Vertigo Exile after Mark Russell's Second Coming, about Jesus hanging out with Superman, quote-unquote Superman. And that book ended up at Ahoy. Very odd, happening of events. And this book at Image, where you'd actually expect a Vertigo Exile to go. And the narration open, first of all, the credits page has an AC/DC quote on it, which is kind of weird. And then we open with the line, "Have you ever gotten off really hard in a room full of people?" And we're in a giant sex club in San Francisco. And there's like BDSM stuff going on, and just everyone's naked and whatever. There's some stuff going on. And then it gets raided by religious zealots. And George and Avery, a woman, escape and settle into life, into like normie life. And it's this weird status quo where there's this like religious fundamentalist, they refer to them as right wing, but the politics in here, it's very back and forth. They're in charge of society now, and there's like sex audits every time. I don't know if it's every time you have an orgasm or every time you have sex, you have to file paperwork with like the pleasure center, and the script drops and dialogue within it and everything drops the word feminism a bunch, but it's a certain perversion and perspective on it and stuff like that. And in this world, as I said, with the whole auditing and paperwork, it regulates pleasure, and especially there's like something about regulating male pleasure. Like they never come, like they don't say it explicitly, but it's like implied, like, hey, masturbation, especially by males, not a thing. Don't do it. And Avery goes to a job interview. She gets criticized for her lipstick, which is like the most like completely non-noticeable, boring lipstick in the first place. And the interviewer tells her, "We prefer femininity that doesn't call attention to itself." And so Avery here, she used to be a sex worker of some kind. It's not clear, in what arena. And her husband, who has more quickly than her settled into kind of like a cover-up day job as a normie, essentially, he sees something behind doors that we don't see, and she's told that he's arrested. And so then they start coming after her, and she goes on the run. And this was actually the most interesting part of the issue to me, where she goes through, she's like, hey, as a sex worker, again, whatever specifically that means to her, she has certain skills that you wouldn't expect. And we see these skills in action as she runs from these like Gestapo type dudes. So she's got core strength, which allows her to jump over stuff and everything. She's got online marketing skills. She's got people skills. She can perform under pressure. She can escape bondage because she gets handcuffed for a second. And she has a tolerance for strong smells when she hides in a dumpster until they leave. And then in the end of the issue, she like finds the other refugee sex workers in a cave. And it's like this big splash page. And I don't know if I'm supposed to know like some significance of this. Maybe if I was like more familiar with San Francisco or Bay Area native, I don't know. Did she somehow get across the water and they're like hanging out in Alcatraz? I have no clue. I think I'm gonna keep reading this just because it's like really strange and racy, and there's some interesting ideas here, but I don't think the world building and the philosophies at play are quite there. I don't think it's developed further and far enough, at least in this issue. I don't have a great grasp of how everything fits together, but it's strange. And there's like you see penises in this issue and other things, but it's not like
I didn't know you were reading another smut book.
No, but it's not really gratuitous. And I mean, when I say you see a penis, it's like 3 lines. It's not, it's not like some photorealism thing. This book actually like way less racy than you might expect based on the title and premise.
Yeah, I flew through it. This is not faithless.
Yeah, I think it's more. It's less racy than that. But we'll see in future issues. And I think I'll read the second issue at least. See if they delve deeper. No pun intended. Okay, so into the X-Men corner, end of the alphabet. Powers of X number 5. We've only got, this is the third to last issue of the Hoxpox saga before we get into the actual relaunch. So in year 1, Charles has Fords build the new and improved Cerebro, which like registers mutant thingy jigs, like their essences as backups, which allows him to resurrect them with the 5 people. So it's not quite a traditional retcon. It's just folded into the existing retcons in this series with Moira's 10 lives. So I was happy to see that, even though I still have some hesitancy with the overall retcons. And then we see the recruitment of Emma Frost for Krakoa. And she's obviously apprehensive due to her history with Genosha. That's the beginning of Grant Morrison's run, the most cataclysmic event for mutants. I believe way more so. We saw the numbers in a previous issue, but more so than House of M, or the Decimation, I should say. And that's when her secondary mutation was unlocked and everything like that. And they want her, initially, they want her as like a politician, lobbyist type character. And that's what we've already seen, where she helped bail out Sabretooth, and then she helped with the UN vote. But they also want her like as the distributor of the miracle drugs via the Hellfire Club. And she compares it to the East India Company. And I think this will tie into the Marauders book, which they're describing as like a pirate X-Men series. And then her motivation is she's doing it for the children or whatever. And that's always been a thing with Emma Frost, is like people forget, like she's really like the like most important teacher after Xavier, because like they get put in teacher roles, but none of the core X-Men from like the original, the Silver Age, or from Giant Size, none of them ever like fully embraced like the teacher role. They obviously they've had mentor relationships with younger X-Men on the battlefield and stuff like that, and in certain books like Wolverine and the X-Men, etc.
Is it like Jean who's the only one?
Huh?
Is it like Jean who's like the only one from the original 5?
I mean, I don't even know about her, but Emma,
like maybe new X-Men era for like 10 minutes, because then she dies.
But Emma has always had that angle. I mean, back to her first few appearances and everything. she was a rival teacher. She had her rival school with the Hellions and everything like that, and that continued through her perspective while she was a major character in the books in a relationship with Scott. That was kind of part of her angle. Obviously, she taught Generation X for a long time, and then the Academy X team and things like that. And they're going to give her 2 out of 12 seats on the Krakoan Council, which it's kind of 14. Cypher and Krakoa itself are on there, but they don't count as part of the official council. And the second seat is because they want her to bring Shaw back in to essentially be the bad cop of the Hellfire Club. And they do reference, no footnote though, that she literally just got rid of Shaw, and that was in the X-Men Black Emma Frost one-shot by Leah Williams and Chris Pacello, which I enjoyed that issue, so it was nice to acknowledge it. And she demands a third, and she gets it, but we don't know the specifics of that in this issue. And so the breakdown is there are 4 groups of 3, and they're named after seasons. And so Magneto and Professor X are together. We don't know who their third is. And then Emma and Shaw are together. We don't know who the third she picked is. And then we don't know the other 2 groups. One of them, since there's seasons, one of them is called Summer. So I don't know. And then another major thing worth noting here is that there's a Namor page, because Charles kind of projects himself to all the major mutants. And this is kind of a flashback. It takes place before all the villains showed up at the end of last issue. He's like, hey, come chill. We've set this thing up. And Namor's like, hey, I already know I'm better. And I don't know. I think there's a really great panel and lines here from Namor, but I don't think it's as satisfactory as I would have liked, because obviously, okay, Namor's invited to Krakoa, but he's also the leader of an entirely separate existing nation, which is possibly larger than Krakoa. And so he kind of has split duties, and they don't fully acknowledge that here. And then there's the huge elephant in the room, continuity-wise, of the whole Invaders backstory that we now know. And that brings up a question of, when does the House of X take place in relation to Invaders? Does Namor know this Charles Xavier backstory that he's discovered, and how does he feel about that? Who knows? It's not acknowledged here. I didn't necessarily expect it to, because that would take up a lot of space, but I'm hoping the X-Men books at some point acknowledge that. And then there's like multiple pages of some thousand year later stuff with Technarchy and shit, and I don't care about that. Mike, do you have further thoughts?
The last 2 issues has been really, really good. This is really, really good. I knew you were going to enjoy it, because I texted you and I was like, yo, this issue has a lot of Emma in it, so I know you're going to like it. All the Emma parts are really good. I'm interested to see what the whole council is going to be. I'm fully with you. When we get into the far future stuff with Nimrod, I don't really care. I'm not as interested in much as that, but the backups of the crystals and like the codexes for people and their essences, I thought was all interesting. And this still continues to be an interesting and perplexing series. That's some really, really strong comics right now.
The other thing is, this is just a quick comment. The way that Forge was drawn, as well as the coloring, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I feel like the colorist could have gone just slightly deeper with his skin tone, darker, I should say, and then I feel like he's maybe slightly too large, too chunky, because this depiction of Forge, if you color swapped his bandana to red, you could 100% mistake him for Corsair and add a mustache. If you think about it, Forge and Corsair, if you draw them a certain way, they look pretty similar.
Yeah, except
so for the first
robot leg.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't think you see that for the first few panels and stuff. And so honestly, the first panel I saw a dude with the bandana, and especially because they don't use Forge super prominently for like a decade now, with rare exceptions. honestly, for the first panel, I'm like, oh, he's talking to Corsair, especially since this scene was in year 0. So he's meeting up with Forge before like the All New All Different team exists, I believe. This is Silver Age time. So obviously it's based on him knowing all the previous lives, so he knows where all the mutants are that eventually join the X-Men and what their connections are.
I mean, right. I looked at this and I went, wow, that was Forge. So there you go.
All right, last issue of the week, another X-Men book, another anniversary special, New Mutants War Children. This is Claremont and Sienkiewicz, who worked together on the original New Mutants run from issues 18 to 31 and 35 to 38. They did the Demon Bear saga. They did the Slumber Party and some Warlock stuff and the Legion, the introduction of Legion, and all kinds of stuff. And that was 84 to 86.
I guess that's our show. What are we gonna do? Should we wait for is he coming back?
Back. I didn't post.
And that's why there's an audio version.
Yeah, so not sure where it cut off, but Claremont Sienkiewicz had an iconic New Mutants run, dealt with stuff like Warlock, Legion, the Demon Bear saga, and they did another reunion on the characters for X-Men Unlimited 43 in 2003. I don't want to say an iconic cover, but an amazing Sienkiewicz cover. And the story here, I'm going to be honest, it's kind of jagged. I don't know entirely 100% what's going on, but Warlock is having a bad day and goes a little nuts. And I guess he's just like he's like overly anxious about kind of like his background, the species as a species and everything like that, and his supposed destiny and everything like that. So instead of eventually getting to the point where he murders everyone, he like runs away and then ends up fighting them anyway. But then everyone else goes after him, and the entire team, which at this point Kitty is also in this issue with Lockheed. And then it like takes a weird right turn where magic, like the demonic version of magic, the hell child, I forget what it's called, basically gets awakened, and then they end up like they fix Warlock, and then they have to shift to fighting the evil turned magic, and then it ends up with magic fighting herself, and then it kind of ends. Honestly, this book it's not very crystal clear, but it was entertaining, at least on certain level, to see Bill Sienkiewicz drawing the New Mutants, and Claremont gets a few interesting things in here. And the very interesting thing is that I guess they're giving Claremont the comps to read House of X, because this has to be meta. This has to be a reference, because there's a moment where Cypher, who's still alive at this point, before he dies, they're like trying to find Warlock, and Cypher is just like looking at literally tracks on the ground, but he's like near some weeds or whatever, and someone is like, you can communicate with plants now, and Cypher's like, I've never tried to get around to that, and I feel like that's got to be a reference to Krakoa and that type of stuff, which would be very interesting. I think that's it. But that's New Mutants War Children. It's kind of a mixed bag, but just for the nostalgia factor and stuff, it's worth a look. So that's the show this week. And I've done this once or twice before. I'm going to, for next retro book, I'm going to turn to the co-host and we're going to do a vote. You have two options. Bloodshot number 1. Well, first of all, the setup is these are indie books from February 1993. So we've got Bloodshot number 1 by Kevin Van Hook and Don Perlin, or Sonic the Hedgehog number 0, the first ever Sonic comic book in the long running, just barely like a year ago finished continuity of Sonic, written by Michael Gallagher and drawn by Scott Shaw. So,
well, I think it's an easy decision, and I'm going to speak for Dan. Everything involving Sonic is an abomination and should be destroyed. So, Bloodshot number 1, please.
I'm curious if Dan does concur, because I said Michael Gallagher, who wrote some terrible Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's what piqued my interest on that. So I will go Sonic.
Then I will be the deciding factor, and all I have to ask is what company published Bloodshot?
Valiant.
Bloodshot it is.
Damn
it. We will see you next week. Thanks for watching this episode. Watch previous ones. Watch next ones. Have a good night.
Bye.